Hi everyone, this is Arkady Frekhtman. I'm a New York City personal injury trial attorney, and welcome to Last Week Tonight, where we answer your questions and we talk about your comments. So let's get right into it. These are the most recent comments on our channel. And here's a question or a comment just from 5 hours ago today, October 22nd, and it says, can we get retrolisthesis cases? And they're talking about a video I did that was about knee injury verdicts. Yeah, absolutely, I could do that. I would have to research like retrolisthesis verdicts. I've done some retrolisthesis cases, and they could be serious injuries when the disc, rather the vertebrae, like actually fractures, and there's that injury to the vertebrae after like a car crash, let's say. Absolutely, so I'll do that. I'll research that, and I'll do some verdict videos about that. And then Rolando Hernandez says, I want to talk to you about my case, please. Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to do a consultation, just text me, 347-566-9595. The best way to do it is just to include your name, brief facts, just like 1 or 2 sentences, and the injury information, and as well as your city and maybe your date of incident. And then we can, schedule a consult. If you like, you could also fill out a link. We have a link to a form, but the form pretty much has these same questions like I just mentioned, facts, injuries, just so I can get a little bit of a background, a little bit of an understanding about the case. And then also it helps me sometimes prepare for the call, because sometimes people call me and they say, hey, I have this case and it's really complicated and I've had many surgeries and it's been going on for years. So what they do is they just send me the index number, or they say, hey, my case is in Queens or in the Bronx, and here's my name. And then I could look it up in the court's computer, review everything, right? And then I have a much better consultation where I can give them some really good feedback, as opposed to just not knowing anything. Then obviously it's going to be a much worse consultation. So I'm always trying to do what's better for you guys. So I don't mind going that extra mile. Okay, and then Mr. Carter says, hello, I have a pre-trial conference scheduled, but I haven't had a mediation or a settlement conference. My case is 3 years old. Also, is the plaintiff required to accompany the attorney at the pretrial conference? Thanks, all of your videos are extremely helpful. And he gives me the thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the short answer is no. The plaintiff, the client, does not have to appear. And the reason you may not have gotten those other conferences is because it just depends on where you are. Some counties and some venues just don't have settlement conferences, right, or mediations. It used to be like, for example, in Manhattan, they would have a mandatory mediation. So when you would be on the trial calendar in Manhattan, they would call you in and a judge would try to mediate. But that was like a pilot program that was around for a few years. Now that judge has left, he retired, now he's in a private mediation company. So they don't have that anymore, right? So if you had a case, let's say 10 years ago, you would have had this mediation, but now it just doesn't exist. So, I don't know if this particular individual has a case in New York City or it could be somewhere else, but, you just have to ask your lawyer about those kind of details, because some places just don't have them. And there's not really any requirement to have a mediation or a settlement conference. Remember, a mediation is just an attempt to resolve a case. So you show up and the other side shows up and you try to resolve a case. Now, it might work, but it might not work. And the same thing with the settlement conference, except the settlement conference is even less so, right? Because in mediation, you're paying for a judge's time. Let's say this retired judge, you're paying like $600 an hour for the judge's time. You're preparing a mediation brief with your mediation statement. It could be like 10, 20 pages, all your exhibits, like photos of how the crash occurred or the fall, the defective condition, your injury information, photos, medical records, and the other side's preparing what they're going to use at trial. Their evidence, maybe their doctor, their independent medical examiner, defense medical examiner report to say you're not that hurt, or their radiology evidence, whatever it is. So everyone's really reviewing all this, right? You're reviewing it, they're reviewing it, you're talking to each other, the judge is reviewing it, the judge is giving you his or her opinion as to value. Some mediations could take the whole day. They start at like 8 a.m., they don't finish until 6 p.m. They go all day. You're fighting, you're working, you're trying to come to this, number. But settlement conferences are different because that's court ordered. So you just show up and they say, okay, can we settle this? What's your demand? Oh, okay, $1 million. Okay, what's your offer? Oh, 50,000. Well, so bad, too bad, so sad, go home. And that's really like what it's like. It's just very quick. So, the court's not going to spend all day like talking to you or looking at everything at a settlement conference. So, if you could do a private mediation, do it. But remember the caveat there, and I've done other videos about it, is I only like to go to the mediations if there's like a good faith money offer, hard money on the table, because you don't want to show up and think I'm going to get $1 million and then they just like lowball you and, tell you your cases are crap, because what's the point of that? It's just a waste of your time. And then here's a question from Obey. He says, I broke my ankle while delivering for Amazon. The customer's steps were loose and made me fall. Had 2 surgeries, a repair and a corrective surgery with a nerve burial. Oh, that's pretty serious. And going for my deposition soon. Workers' comp claim with a third-party claim. $1 million policy. First offer was only $50,000. After that, we just filed a lawsuit instead of negotiating the first offer. Yeah, I would agree with that. Exactly. You don't want to negotiate, because if you have $1 million policy with these serious injuries with 2 surgeries, you're probably thinking the case is worth at least, like say, $500,000 or more, and they're giving you $50K, so you just say, forget it. We see where you are. Let's just go to a jury trial. Just make sure you have a real trial attorney. If you need a consultation, just text me. I could do the research and send you the prior verdicts and settlements of the attorney that's handling it. I don't know what city you're in, but in any city, look, if it's good liability, if the steps were loose and were like against the building code, you might want to get a safety engineer or expert to show, like, hey, this is against the law. And then you prove liability, and then the injuries are really serious. And you get workers' comp from Amazon, meaning they pay for your lost wages, they pay for your medical care, so they pay the doctor so you can get treatment. And in some states, like in New York, you could also do a settlement with workers' comp, known as a Section 32, where you get a lump sum, big money payment, like say $300,000 right away, but then they stop those weekly payments for your lost wages and your medical bills. But then the big case is going to be against the homeowner where you were delivering, or maybe it was like a commercial property, right? They have at least $1 million. They probably have, if it's commercial, they probably have excess and umbrella, so find that out. And if they have this wobbly staircase, they're liable for that, and you can collect full justice on that case, so good luck. A Hustler Spirit says, I hurt my shoulder at work and had a glenoid on my shoulder, came out of place and chipped off, and they could not repair it. They had to shave and take out about 25% of it. Oh, that's pretty serious. The glenoid labrum, that's a part of the shoulder. And can you give me a ballpark estimate as to what I should get in a settlement? Yeah, and he's responding to our video about the lawsuit value of a shoulder surgery. What is my case worth? And that's an older video. I think that one I did many, many years ago. So maybe I'll do an updated video about that. That's actually a good topic. We just did one on knees. We can do one on shoulders and all the different shoulder injuries and what are they worth. But this one, look, if they took out 25% of that part of your shoulder, the glenoid, it's hard for me to say just like from a comment, but I think it should be worth a lot. Look at it this way. What is just an arthroscopic shoulder surgery worth? A lot of it depends on the policy. So if you have a big policy, like say you have an unlimited policy, right? Like 10 million or whatever. Well, a lot of those cases could settle for anywhere from 150, 125, all the way up to maybe even 300 or 400 or even more than that. And these are just scopes, right? Arthroscopic procedures, depending on the overall damage to the person, the overall, how their life was impacted. But if you have all that, like a glenoid, 25% of it had to be removed because they had to shave it, it got chipped off, they couldn't really fix it during surgery. That's, that could be worth more. That could be worth 500. It could even be worth into the millions if it's built up the right way. So it really depends on a few of the, we have to get into a little bit more of the details and the specifics about like where, how did it happen, who's liable for the, because it just says I got hurt at work, right? So it could be a straight workers' comp, then it has much less value. But if it's a third party personal injury, it has much more value. So a lot of this, is all unanswered. So we have to look into that. But yeah, it could be a huge case. And then the Valley says, I had arthroscopic surgery for a meniscectomy, 5 injections, and 3 rounds of physical therapy with knee arthritis. And she's responding to our video, Cracking the Code, How Lawyers Value Your Knee Injury Case. That's the one where we did all the knee injury verdicts, right? So yeah, that's serious. That's very serious. that could be a big case too. Arthroscopy, like I just said, it could be a few hundred thousand usually. Here's a response to our video entitled Back Injuries and Your Personal Injury Lawsuit, Medical Care and the Case Value. And this particular person says, it's Tess, and she says, does it have to be from a car accident? I had a workers' comp accident with a lumbar 4, 5, and S1 annular injury. So yeah, no, it doesn't really matter how the accident or how the injury occurs, as long as you have liability and you have a defendant with, let's say, insurance that you could go after, right? You could have a trip and fall, you could have a ceiling collapse, you could have a construction accident, it could be a truck, a pedestrian struck, whatever, a garbage truck, it could be a car, it could be Amazon, anything. It doesn't really matter. But the thing that matters is you do want to have liability. Like if you're at fault, let's say you're running across the street, not looking, not in the crosswalk, and you run right in front of a car, well, that's not really much of a case. Or you're driving and you blow a stop sign, you blow a red light, and then that's not much of a case. So you want to make sure you have liability against the person you're suing, and you want to make sure that that person you're suing, or persons or companies you're suing, have enough assets and enough insurance to then fully compensate you. Barbara says, hello, I have waited 7 months after settlement. They keep saying in the end of April, May, June, July, August, and now we've waited 6 years on my case and they won't talk to me. The lawyer sold me out, I think. Oh my God, that's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, you've been waiting all this time for your settlement and the lawyer is just not responding to you. What I would do is call them up and make an appointment and go over there and meet them face to face and say what's going on. It shouldn't be that long. And then they have to tell you, because if they said, look, it's going to be a few months and now it's turning into years, something must be the reason for this, right? So you want to find out. And if they're not doing it, you could fire them and hire another lawyer. And you could also say, look, I'm entitled to a consultation. You have to, because that's the ethical rule, right? The lawyer has to communicate with you. So if they're really not communicating with you at all, you could send them a letter, an email, a chat, go there in person. They've got to tell you, either them or their representative has got to communicate. And like I said, if they're not the right lawyer for you, you can let them go and get someone else that's going to care about the case more and do a better job for you. Little Bit says, can a hospital that has 13 people on their payroll for one nurse say, I have to write a letter? I cannot speak with anyone of authority. I'm lucky to sign my name. My hands cramp up. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, the hospital should have procedures for you to be able to voice your concerns and speak to people, but you have to be careful because, hospitals are primarily looking out to, for themselves, because they're also for-profit businesses, they're corporations, and they have risk management. So when you say voice, if you're voicing a concern like they did something wrong, they're obviously not just going to admit it. So you have to maybe get an outside lawyer, like a medical malpractice lawyer, because their risk management department does whatever they can to manage their risk, basically eliminate their risk so they don't get sued. So it depends on what you're talking about, what you want to communicate, the subject matter. Tetra responds to my short about the New York City subway slip and fall and says, how did you prove it was their fault? Yeah, so you could actually take a look. I did a video about that where I described the opening statement in detail. I actually responded to the comment with the link to the video. But the short of it is that, we actually had proof that the workers showed up and they had the shovels and they had the salt because it was snowing, it had stopped snowing. And so the snow was covering the steel steps and they had all the equipment and they were about to clean it and make it safe, because they knew that this was Sunday night, really late, 3, maybe 1 a.m. on Sunday to Monday. And Monday was Monday morning, rush hour commute, 8, 9 a.m. So anyway, but a supervisor actually called them all off and they said, don't do anything here, you're more needed at another station. So all 10 of them then left, and it's right in the logs. So we used that to prove liability. We said, look, these people showed up, they had all the equipment, they're about to clean. And what was this decision just to send all of them to another station? Okay, maybe the other station also needed cleaning, but who's gonna clean this station? You can't just leave the snow on the steel steps. And that's what happened, and that's what our client fell on. So that was our the main thrust of our argument for liability. Saria says, content video idea. If the defendant does not have insurance and supposedly does not have assets. What are your options? Garnishing wages, liens. In my case, trial is probably next. I reached out via text. Yeah, so I mean, basically, you just basically go through every avenue, right? You look at every available door. So number one, does the defendant have anything? If they don't have any insurance, if they don't have any assets, okay, could I go like maybe UM against myself, against my policy or household policy? Or sometimes there's like some other defendants that could be responsible. Could I sue them? Just basically look for every avenues. But sometimes, I guess, unfortunately, I don't know your situation, I'd have to speak with you, but sometimes I suppose it could be true, right, that there's just no insurance, no assets, and then I guess you're just out of luck, right, because they don't have anything. So even if you get a judgment, okay, I have $1 million judgment on a piece of paper, hey, they owe me $1 million, but they don't even have $1, so what's the difference, right? So unfortunately, but usually you can find some additional assets by finding other parties, going UM, uninsured motorist, or SUM. There's a lot of different avenues available. Here's a question from The Real CEO. He says, how much is a City of New York insurance, EMT, FDNY, after 2 surgeries and a herniated disc in the neck due to the accident and it was their fault? Okay, so when you sue the city, the good thing is it's unlimited. There's no cap, right? Sometimes when you sue like a truck, it'll be 750, meaning 750,000 or $1 million. And the smaller trucks, for example, they don't have any excess or umbrella because they're just like one truck, small companies. But with the city, there's no limit, right? Because you're suing the City of New York, so it's just their budget. So it could be a high amount. So that's good. The only bad thing with the city is that it does take time, unfortunately. It takes time to move those cases. And then William says, how is Queens when handling car accidents? Is it a fair venue? And he's responding to my live, where the personal injury lawyer answers your FAQs video in the raw law. So I would say Queens, yeah, it could be fair. I mean, Queens is like a real melting pot. So you have a lot of different communities in Queens. There's like a Chinese community, there's a Spanish communities, there's, I think, a Greek community. It's a very melting pot. And it's not only about ethnicity, but it's really about like whether that individual juror could work in the group, right? Because you're gonna have 6 jurors, 2 alternates, but 6 jurors, and you need 5 out of 6, 5 to 1 is okay, or 6-0 to say the defendant was negligent and to say that the fair and reasonable value of all your harms and losses are, millions and millions of dollars. So can these people do it, right? It's up to that individual and how they work with others in a group. So you have to be mindful of both when you pick a juror. You have to ask that juror, if you were selected on this case, if the evidence and the law shows that it justifies, hey, millions and millions of dollars, could you write that on your verdict form? Some people will say, no, I don't like millions of dollars, I just don't like those cases. So you want to get rid of those jurors. But if they say yes, then how are they in a group? Are they more of a leader, where if they think, hey, your case is worth $5 million, they're going to push everyone else to give you $5 million? Or are they more like a follower, where they think, oh yeah, I think this is $5 million, but then someone else says, are you kidding me? This is worth 50K. And they're gonna be like, okay, I just wanna go home, fine, 50K. You don't want those people, right? Because then they're just gonna agree. So you have to think of all these things, and it's very much like almost like a sociological or a psychology, and almost like an experiment, right? Because you have to pick all these people, how are they gonna interact with each other? It's almost like a chess game, or like a psychological chess game. It's not easy to do. So the more you practice as a lawyer, the better. But I think in Queens, you can get a fair juror because it's basically New York City. You get all types of people. But I think it's very important, especially in a place like Queens, to do a real thorough voir dire, that's the jury selection, because a lot of cases are won or lost in the jury selection. So thank you for joining us. Let us know what questions you have. Please like and subscribe to our channel. And we are here for you. Our goal is helping serious injury victims and families. Let us know how we could help you. You could text me, 347-566-9595, or just leave a comment on our channel and let us know what videos you want to see next. All the best, and bye-bye.